high five. Saludos and salutations, Broncos country. Welcome to another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. I'm your host, Adam Diaz, and joining me, as always, is my co-host at Richie. Richie, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. Well, we do normally have our other co-host, but he's running a little late, so he's going to be here, guys. So be patient. Our good friend Johnny Taki will be joining us shortly. And as you can see, my setup is a little bit different because literally just before we went live on the air, I had a technical issue that I couldn't fix in time. So I had to scramble at the last moment. And that's why Rich and I look a little bit different. But I'm just glad that I was able to fix this issue and get, to be here with you guys. So just bear with me for those of you watching us live. But anyway, I just want to remind you guys that we are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast where we're filling you in on all things NFL, but more importantly, Broncos news. Keep in mind that we go live every single Thursday at 7654 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. You know where to put them. Guys, we are in a quest for 1,000 subs. If you've ever wondered how to support a growing channel, the absolute best way is to subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button wherever you see us on Facebook, retweet on Twitter, and just, guys, comment and share. The more interaction we get on the pods, the more eyes we get in front of in terms of exposing ourselves, the channel anyway, to Broncos country. And if that wasn't enough incentive, Glenn Hauser has said that once we hit that 1,000 subs, guys, remember, he is going to do the next MHRT podcast wearing the Barrel Man Barrel. And that's something that I can honestly say we are all looking forward to. So it's coming, guys, but we need your help to get there.
Only the barrel.
Well, I guess the underneath stuff we'll leave to the imagination, Rich. So anyways, guys, just help us with this. Subscribe on YouTube, like on Twitter and Facebook, retweet, and just help us share all of our amazing content on all of our pages so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country can know that we are here, we're here to stay, and we mean business. So, Richie, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I know I asked you that earlier, but I felt the need to ask you that again because, I'm telling you, for me, it has been a really crazy day. It kind of makes me wish I knew a little bit more about computers, and I'm really getting the urge not to literally throw mine out the window.
Well, computers is what I do for my day job. So if I ever have a computer problem, then I'm probably in the wrong gig. So I'm pretty much always here live and running tickety-boo.
Well, that's great, my friend. So, guys, to the topic of today's show, we're going to talk about what Richie, myself, and when Johnny joins us a little bit later, our expectations are about training camp. So if you guys have any comments or ideas or questions for any of us, just hit us up in the comments, watching us live, and Richie, and when Johnny gets here, they're going to pick out your questions and we're going to answer them to the best of your ability with the time that we are afforded. But thank you guys so much for joining us, and let's get into today's topic. So,
first things first, thank you very much for joining us, Prophet, and I thought this was rather fitting given the Glenn Hauser comment. So I wanted to bring this forward for everyone. It's a funny comment.
When the barrel man was asked what was under his barrel, he replied, "My boo."
That's funny.
That is funny.
So, I have a question for everyone here. There's going to be a multitude of positional battles, and that's actually one of the topics that kind of came up with I think Mundungus and I were both in a back and forth with a few different people. In fact, it may have actually been Mile High Prophet where we were talking back and forth about the Hard Knocks and how Denver actually has some very naturally fitting, made for TV, if you will. Banner goes here. Position battles, quarterback, some would argue running back as well, that, there's going to be some infighting, particularly in that, either spot 3 or 4 or even 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on how aggressive you think that battle is going to go. And, there's going to be a few other position battles as well. Cornerback, where's that rank order going to end up with the addition of Pat Surtain and Fuller and Darby coming in? So there's a lot of position groups that we got to work through, and that our coaches are in an unenviable position of trying to sort out that order and where everyone's going to fit. So big question is, where would you like to start? We got a lot to cover.
I mean, let's start with the most obvious, and that's with quarterback. So there's still the rumors about a certain quarterback that could surprise not just our Broncos team, Rich, but the entire NFL in total, in terms of maybe possibly landing in Denver. Now, while it would be nice to get into speculation and whatnot, I think it'd be better for us to try to concentrate on more towards reality, which is basically what we have in front of us, which is, Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. Now, this is something that we've talked about so much on this show, and it seems like Broncos country is so divided. Some people are for Drew Lock, some people are for Bridgewater. So I just wanted to see from these guys, when we get to training camp, who wants it more. We've already talked about who we think deserves it or who we think should get it, but I want to see in training camp who wants it more, because I believe whoever shows that is going to get a little bit more of a bump in terms of like more play time during preseason, because this is not going to be an easy choice, Rich. For Bridgewater, I think the ceiling for him is a little bit higher than for Drew Lock. There's more pressure for Drew Lock to succeed in Denver than there is for Bridgewater. If Bridgewater, let's say, for example, he's the starter and he fails, then it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. You can chalk that up to, just another possible Band-Aid on the Broncos offense. But for Drew Lock, he was selected by John Elway. And even though Elway is no longer the GM of the Broncos, there's still a lot riding on Drew Lock to try to, bring this team back into salvation. And the Broncos, not just offensively, but defensively as well, are a very stacked team this season. And if there was ever a time to lead this team back to a championship run, it's this season.
So, again, quite a bit to unpack there. I think we need to add actually a little to what you said at the beginning. It's not just divided within Broncos country. As we've seen from several of the articles, at least the reporting. Now, we can argue whether or not the reporting is accurate or not. But reports are at the very least that we have what appear to be a bit of not a divide, but at the very least a choosing of sides, so to speak, between Noah Fant and Jerry Jeudy and some of the other receivers as it pertains to which camp they were all going to go to. Now, it is possible that rumblings have come through, the, Dove Valley there and, quashed this whole separation business. So we don't know. And as fans were, waited with bated breath saying, what's going to happen next? But at the very least, we do know that there was some divide within the locker room about who was going to attend what and where. And I think that has to be at the very least mentioned.
No, I agree. Well. No, I agree. So, and I'll reiterate what I said, that if you ask me who do I want to start, and I say this with like just barely a very close second, I would probably say Drew Lock, because if Drew Lock fails, there's a better chance for Denver to try to deal him, let's say, during the midseason for like a draft pick or something. Whereas Bridgewater, if he fails, Denver would be they'd be better off just trying to keep him in a backup role type of thing instead of trying to trade him or cut him, because they're still paying him a lot more money than they're paying Drew Lock to play. Obviously, if Drew Lock fails, that's more egg in Denver's face. And let's face it, we've had so much egg on our face the last a couple seasons coming off that 2015 championship run that it's just, in some cases, you can say it's been unbearable. But with that being said, Rich, I do think that both of these guys, from what we've seen so far, are pretty hungry for this. They want this. They want the chance to prove themselves, I can't honestly say who wants it more. I guess we'll see. We'll get to see that. We'll get that answer once, maybe towards the end of preseason, if not sooner. But training camp it'll be the time for one of these guys to step up and say, I'm the guy, give me the keys, let's go.
Yeah, and to your point of retaining Teddy as a backup quarterback, he was on a 3-year deal that he signed last year. We have obtained or acquired, if you will, the last 2 years of that deal. So there is some validity in your comment there to say, hey, Drew doesn't work out. We have a stopgap here in Teddy. Now, there is a fair number of rumblings, if you will, around the NFL, particularly as it pertains to coaching staff and just the team in general, perhaps leaning a little bit more towards Teddy Bridgewater than Drew Lock. Now, you do wonder if this is just almost creating friction for friction's sake. How can we drum up eyeballs and views and all that kind of stuff? So I am very, very curious to get some insider insight, particularly from inside the building, in terms of who's taking more first team reps, or at the very least, who seems to be getting more looks and more input into how things look, because that might actually play a little bit more of a role in terms of where the coaching staff is leaning towards.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next part of that, which is running backs. We got a really exciting running back room this season. Melvin Gordon is coming into a second year of a $16 million contract. We got Mike Boone from free agency, and of course our draft prospect in Williams coming in. So, I mean,
I don't want us to forget about Levante Bellamy either. He was seen as a actually, if I'm not mistaken, and please anyone in the chat correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm quite certain we paid a premium for Bellamy as a UDFA last draft to keep him on our roster. Now, he got hurt really early and he was behind, Lindsey and Gordon, so he was kind of a little bit ways down the depth chart. But Bellamy had some real legitimate promise coming out of college, and it'd be very, very curious to see if he can continue that and actually maybe supplant someone like Royce Freeman, who is clearly, we'll just say, notably missing from every single coach's presser when running backs are mentioned. We got Gordon, we got Williams, Boone, and then you're kind of waiting there saying, there's another guy, and then it's like, yeah, so anyways, we got a bunch of cornerbacks too. So I really think that Bellamy could be that person that surprises quite a number of people, because I think he has a bit of a similar build from what I recall from a guy like Williams, and he has that kind of shifty kind of running style, which would fit fairly well in our team. Something we're probably looking for.
No, I totally agree. But I mean, Melvin Gordon, in terms of probably those three, Mike Boone, we only have highlights of him of what he did in Minnesota. But even though he's going to be number 3 on the depth chart, I feel he's going to be of more importance in the special teams category. Maybe not so much returner, because if the Broncos might decide to keep Dante Spencer, but there have been pretty good highlights of him when he was in Minnesota returning the ball there, Rich. So, let's not keep in mind that he's a pretty fast guy.
We're just trying to add more topics to the show. Then way to go. You just nailed it, because I mean, again, that's another legitimate potential camp battle that we could be seeing is Boone versus Spencer. And this is before I came into the Mile High Roundtable here and came into Broncos Talk. Is I've actually been a proponent for a very long time of wanting a running back as a dual role running back returner, because I think that's much more valuable to the team, where you have someone that can both play special teams and take up a roster spot by actually playing on the offensive side of the ball. In my opinion, that is a much better use of that roster spot for our team.
No, and I totally agree. But I guess in terms of who would you probably choose, or who would I say has more to lose out of those three, it would probably be Melvin Gordon. Because if Williams comes in and then just completely, turns the Broncos offense into a machine, and he outshines Gordon, Gordon is as good as gone at the end of the season, and let's be honest, Gordon looked good last season because Philip Lindsay was injured. So, and I had high expectations of that 1-2 punch between Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, but unfortunately, Lindsay wasn't able to stay healthy and playing on a continuum, whereas the Melvin Gordon had to carry the weight of the team and try to be number one rushing guy and all that. And there wasn't really, even though we had Royce Freeman, he wasn't somebody that when you saw him on the field that he could get like big yards or what have you. So I probably think that Melvin Gordon is going to have a better season than he did last year in terms of, and I'm saying that only because I think he's going to exert himself and try to, convince Denver. And if not Denver, somebody out there like, hey, I still got gas in the tank. I can still go, give me some money.
Well, as they always say in your contract year, this is your audition year, right? Mm-hmm. You're not only auditioning for the team that you're currently on, but you're also auditioning for all the 31 other teams that you're not currently on their roster. So that makes a ton of sense in terms of what you just said. And I think it might be a good idea. I'd just like to, just say hi to everyone who's joined us live, and thank you very much for joining us. I see Travis, EJ, Shadow, Mundungus, the boss. I saw Dave in here. Thank you very much, Dave. And to answer your previous question, it is a brown ale from Wellington Brewery, a local one here in Ontario. And I believe it was you who was asking me, and I did commit to reaching out. They are not legally allowed to ship outside of Canada or even Ontario for that matter. So you have to find someone or come north of the border in order to get it. And we have Mobad, and I saw... That's it. So I hope everyone else who comes in has a great show with us today. And I would have been a running back probably, or a linebacker personally, if I was able to play football here in Canada. However, where I live, our sports here are rugby because it is much cheaper for schools to run, and we just don't have the robust football programs that my neighbors south of the border have. So you can say that I'm an envious individual because I would have much preferred to play football. But with regards to running backs, I really think that it's going to be one of the more interesting battles because you pointed out Mike Boone, special teams returner, Melvin Gordon playing in a contract year, competing basically directly with the rookie. You don't draft a guy in the second round as a football team and just kind of like hope you'll wing it. And, you draft him with the intention of likely being that guy going forward. So you have to imagine Gordon's going to always be looking over his back this year.
No, and that's, you're totally right. And all Gordon needs to do is he just needs a slip up. He can't afford to have a bad game. He can't afford to, it'll just be so interesting. And a lot of people in Broncos country are so excited to see what Williams can bring to the table. Our good friend Boggins was super excited, and I'm pretty sure he can, if he was a gambling man, he would bet down a lot of money to say, hey, Williams is going to take the league by storm this year. And I would probably second that bet.
I think it's possible. My thing is running back is one of the positions that you can transition from college to the NFL pretty seamlessly. You've seen it with a bunch of running backs, including later round running backs who have come in and really kind of blown you back and said, oh my gosh, why did you see how well they played? Philip Lindsay arguably would be that guy coming in as a UDFA, right? All of a sudden comes in 1,000-yard seasons back to back. I do think, though, that what is incredibly important is that we don't try to get super fancy in terms of running. I think we need to identify what our running backs do really, really well and how they run, whether it be a one cut and go or whatever the case may be. And we need to run that type of running game. We need to stop with this, trying to basically fit a square peg in a round hole. We need to identify what our players do best and do it.
No, and I totally agree. But, Rich, running backs are only as good as their offensive linemen. So let's move on to our offensive line, which is probably going to take a good amount of time because it's not just a couple of guys. It's 5 guys who are I can't think off the top of my head if any of them are in a contract year. I don't think so. I know our right tackle was just signed. Left guard is still, I think, Glasgow's in his second year. Cushenberry is in his second year. Reisner's in his third year. Yeah, third. And then obviously Bowles just signed a very well-deserved long-term contract with Denver.
Right.
But you know what? Even though I was trying to be, Mr. Positive about Cushenberry, our center, and saying, oh, you know what? He's still learning. Give him next season. I can't lie to you, Rich. I am so excited to see what the gut can do for us out there, because I mean, his college play tape is impressive, and you just see him out on the field being him, even if he's not practicing or playing football. It's like, this guy is hungry. He's ready to play. And
yeah, but you realize that the Friar Tuck block is not a legitimate one in the NFL, right?
Now I do. But I you know what? And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for Cushenberry. I know he's been out in the media and telling people, I'm learning, I'm working on mistakes and everything. But I feel that out of those five guys, Cushenberry is probably the most likely to lose his starting position after preseason.
Well, I see. So you have just kind of from left to right. I completely agree. I mean, Bowles isn't going anywhere. Now the only benefit to us as a team is if Bowles does, knock on wood, whatever reason, get hurt or injured, which he has not done really to this point, is we have Anderson on our team, who absolutely stepped in when Bowles was at that. Remember that one game last season?
Mm-hmm.
When did he ever play well? And that was one of those. That was one of those things that really took me aback. Now, since we're getting into the offensive line, and since a couple of our offensive linemen have beards, I happen to cut mine. We're going to bring in another bearded co-host of ours into the chat. Thank you, Johnny, for joining us. Let's get this show on the road.
Woo! Okay. There he is.
All right, so guys, I'm here now, so you two can live. Okay, I appreciate you holding it down for me. No, I'm just kidding. Hi guys, sorry about that. I was trying to get home. Had some things to do with the family today, and major accident on the interstate, and we were stuck in literally not even stop and go, just traffic for an hour. So getting home to get on the pod was a nightmare. But I'm here, and I missed you guys, and I'm excited to finally be here. So what the heck are we talking
Johnny,
about?
I've noticed you changed likely from your outfit before you were in. I don't need a Folgers commercial moment, so please stay seated. I know you probably don't have pants on, and this is a kid-friendly show, okay?
No, Johnny has a phone booth he carries with him, and it's just like Superman.
Okay, that works.
When it's time to defend Broncos country, he just goes in and quick change.
That works.
Orange and blue, baby.
Quick change.
No, Johnny, but we were just discussing the offensive line, and where I was telling Rich that out of those five positions, as much as I love and respect Cushenberry, I think he's probably the only one that's really close to losing his job. Should the gut go out there and have an outstanding performance after the preseason?
Okay, so you think do you think that it's hinge? Obviously, it is hinging. Do you think that it's only hinging on the Guts' performance, or do you think the Guts winning that competition right now?
Oh, now that's a super, super interesting angle on it. My opinion is the same. So I got into it a little bit with one of the MHH guys, which I still have to respond back to. Look, I'm a big dude. I can handle it. So
yeah.
In terms of yeah, exactly. In terms of just like blocking style, running style, all that kind of stuff. And while I'm always a huge fan of stats, and I think they have their place, I think it has to go within the context of the actual game tape and game film that you watch. Mm-hmm. So as an example, when we looked at Cushenberry play last year, Cushenberry and Glasgow, in my opinion, were very, very similar in terms of some of their play. Some of their play was downright awful. Some of their play was mediocre, It was. Sorry.
At best.
Look, I'm trying to be nice. I'm Canadian. So
then you better pucker up and say sorry. Okay.
I don't apologize for speaking the truth. I have standards. So
bring them a donut.
A donut. Ooh.
Bring them a donut.
Yeah. So when you look at those two guys, they basically, in my opinion, and the one big piece that I kind of tie the two together for me is I didn't see a lot of push forward. So I didn't see them moving their guy, right? So when you're trying to run or have a run play, and you want to really help your running back jump into that second level and basically outright beat that linebacker, is always better for you to have your guard when they're blocking to be able to physically move their man or their assignment out of the way a little bit to give that extra separation for the running back so that they can get a full head of steam and just juke the linebacker. And we did not see that from either our center or Glasgow, in my opinion. Now, pass protection is a completely different beast. That's not what I'm talking about here. It's the run blocking. And I think that's where we really struggled. And when you can't set up a run block, you're not really scaring the defensive line, because the run blocking is I am moving another man against his will. I am stronger than you. And frankly, it's demoralizing for the other team.
All right. I mean, I agree with you in one respect, but I'm going to throw in a little something that I think might mix it up just a little. All right. Ooh, I heard that burbling from Das Boot.
Das Boot.
Das Boot. Anyway.
I look wrong.
All right. So I want you to think about this for a second. It's just a thought, but I think it has some validity and some value. Okay. When you are surrounded by talent, your talent flourishes. All right. Now, Glasgow, he's a vet. He's a veteran. We brought him in, paid him big money because of his tenure in the NFL, because of his experience, because of his stats. He's a good guard. All right. To be placed in between a right tackle position that was second, or that was just trashed last season. Okay. And then a center who is struggling, who's a rookie, who's young, who had no offseason to learn how to be an NFL center, which is one of the hardest positions in the NFL to learn.
Yes.
To be good at. Being stuck in between the two of them, I think it hindered his ability to play the game that he can. Now,
I will absolutely agree. However, to a point. Continue.
No, I was going to say, so that being said, obviously we've addressed at least as best we can with Bobby Massey and Cam Fleming on the right tackle position. And then obviously we brought in Quinn Miners to bolster and bring some competition to the center position. And hopefully Cush, because I'd love to see Cush succeed, because we did spend some decent draft capital on the guy. I'd love to see him succeed. So hopefully I'm praying. Like, I love Quinn Miners. I love the gut. And if he's the guy, and that's great. But I do want to see Cush succeed. So I would, hopefully either Quinn or Cush take a step up and explode. And then that position, that right guard position, like Glasgow is strengthened as a result of those around him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you right there, Johnny. The only setback of putting in the gut week one is the fact that you kind of mess with the gel that the offensive line usually has to have in terms of being, a formidable, in terms of, playing with each other. Because when you throw in a bunch of new guys, it usually takes time for them to kind of gel together and get, the feeling of, okay, this is how we work together when we have to shift left, or when we have to shift right, or when we have to pass protect. So that's kind of a problem. The struggle is real. And that's kind of a problem that they had last year with Cushenberry himself.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly jump in there and just make one quick comment there. If they were to, supplant Cush with Miners instead, then that is in all likelihood as a result of preseason and what Miners has showed in preseason. And you'd also assume that change would have been made with snaps together and showing that they can work cohesively together. I don't believe any offensive line coach in their right mind or an offensive coordinator in their right mind. We can debate whether or not Shermer has a right mind at all in a different podcast.
There's no debate.
Okay. But at the very least, we know that our head coach has got a pretty solid head on his shoulders, and he is literally probably the best, if not one of the best defensive minds in all of football. I don't think that's really, pardon me?
Agreed.
And the frowniest.
I know it's great. It's great. He totally belongs in Canada. So when you look at all that, they would have to have that chemistry ahead of time. They're not gonna just say week one, Miners, go play.
Probably not. I mean, I maybe. I mean, obviously, if he shows up in training camp, which that is the theme of the show today, right? Is our expectations for training camp, correct?
Correct, sir.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I got here late. But no, I mean, I really do hope that they can take that step. The offensive line is one of those. You have your skill positions. Your running backs, your wide receivers, even your tight ends when they're not blocking. Obviously a tight end when he's blocking, he's part of that offensive line. Mm-hmm. But you have the skill positions, and they kind of, they complement each other, but they're still kind of an individual. The individual's talent. The offensive line, especially, it is a flowing, cohesive unit, plain and simple. And I don't know if you all are very familiar with the Spartans and like their battle tactics, but the Spartans had their phalanx, is what they called it, and it was their shield wall. And the concept was that each guy's shield covered the guy to his left from shoulder to neck. And this is, they said it in the movie 300, but I mean, it's in a lot of other research and everything. And if a single member of that line fell, the entire thing was affected and everybody could die. So the offensive line, for all intents and purposes, is the shield wall of the quarterback. Ooh, I like that. Oh my gosh, I just made a great metaphor. I feel good about that. The offensive line is the quarterback's Spartan shield wall. They have to move as a unit. They have to work together. If one of them is off, the whole thing falls apart. Yep, and we saw that. We saw that last season. I do. All right, expectation time. Woo! I got to say my expectation. I think the whole offensive line takes a major step forward in training camp. One, they've had more time together. Two, they've been practicing already almost for 6 weeks now. That's right now what they have practiced now is more than they had last season going into the actual season.
Mm-hmm. I also think they have better talent on the roster this year than they did last year.
And that's all around.
But I'm specifically talking about the offensive line. Now,
I agree.
If we are going to if we're going to be talking about training camp and kind of what our expectations are between that, I think it would be a fair comment to make that how well Miners does will be how well he can do against Shamar Stephen, the defensive line, basically the interior defensive lineman that we hired from Minnesota. I think we brought him from Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe I don't remember where he came from.
I thought he was from the Vikings. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought he was the Vikings.
And then, I can't remember.
And then we also have, and then it would also be. It also depends on where Vic kind of stacks these guys in terms of who he's going to try and want to go against who. But you might also see Miners go against Purcell, for example, to see kind of where he fits against a run blocking interior defensive lineman. And those I think are going to be the real and true test to see and gauge where is Miners versus someone like Cush, since we've kind of gone on a little bit about the center position. Mm-hmm. And I think we're talking about the center position because, I think it was pretty glaringly obvious when we were watching games last year that,
that's well said. That is well said. Center. Center is it's one of the most. It's one of the most underrated and most important positions on the field.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
agreed.
The center. We always talk about tackles because they cover the edge rush, and the left tackle is at least as long as he's a right-handed quarterback, is the quarterback's blindside protection. But the center is a quarterback's first line of defense.
He's also the guy that typically calls out the blocking.
Yeah, I mean he has to lead that line.
Right.
Leader. He has to read he has to read the defense just as well as the quarterback. Yeah. In order to call to tell the rest of the line the right formation, the right motion in order for the play to not break down. And then of course, and then on top of that, he has to snap the ball on the right count and accurately. And literally as soon as that ball is up his hand, he's got to be ready to go forward and face off with a 6'2" behemoth who's ready to try to eat his lunch. You know what I mean? So it's a very difficult position to play, and it's one of the hardest to learn. And I hope both Cush and Quinn can take a step forward, and that ultimately our ultimate hope, as it should always be, is that the team benefits from whomever wins the job. But I honestly expect it to be very close between Quinn and Cush, and it could come down to a single play in the preseason.
So I'd be very curious, just in general, what do you think Miners needs to do, and what do you think Cush needs to do? So we'll kind of go a flip side, same coin, to win that center position. Do we think that Cush has basically got the job and it's his to lose, or are we actually looking at what was said in the preseason pressers, just after the draft, before everything kind of really got started, where, I would argue that the coaches spilled the beans a little bit. Yeah. And they literally, actually more than a little bit, a lot, and said, we brought Miners in to play center. And it's like, wait a minute, but you just drafted a center the year before. So what do you think Cush needs to do to keep the job? And then I think the bigger hill to climb here is, what do you think Miners needs to do and show in the lead into training camp and in training camp to basically push Cushenberry out of the way and say, you're my backup, I'm the starter now?
Don, you want to start this one?
Man, you know what? I'm trying to wrap my brain around that. I don't have a specific answer for you.
Cush needs to bully. He needs to. Where is it? I saw it here. Oh, EJ said it. Better bully wins the job at center.
Mm-hmm.
And you go up here to EJ earlier. If Miners can move his man from point A to point B consistently against his will, then you have to start him over Cushy. So here's the thing: we've seen, Quinn Miners, if he's viewing those players on the defensive line and those incoming as trees. And he's moving them like he moves trees.
Call him a lumberjack.
The lumberjack, the lumberjack, the gut. Who he's got so many nicknames. Cushenberry needs to step up that way. He needs to impose his will upon his opponent. Like it's not just something to get in the way of somebody. I can get in the way of somebody. Maybe not for very long. I'm handicapped. I've got my ankle injury, but you know what I mean? Like, I can get in the way. What he needs to get good at is making his opponent bend to his will. You're going where I say you're going.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. You know what? And just to piggy off of that, it's the pressure's on for Lloyd Cushenberry. I'm pretty sure he wasn't expecting the Broncos to pick up a center even that early in the third round. So I'm pretty sure that to him kind of lit a fire inside him. Like, okay, the competition's real. There's somebody coming for my job. So I got to go out there, especially since like we talked about before Johnny came in, Rich, that he said that he went on the media because he's seeing the same hype that we're seeing, and I'll admit I'm probably
struggled. Yeah.
I'll
give it to him there. He's humble and he owned how he looked last season. He literally said, I looked like crap last season.
Yeah, and Mike Munchak doesn't seem like the kind of guy who you can try to pull the wool over his eyes. And
No,
you know,
he's pretty smart. He's pretty smart.
He's a pretty smart man. If he sees that Cushenberry cannot get the job done, or falters, or does not live up to what he said he was going to do, maybe even by preseason, we could see a different center come week 1.
Well, again, this all depends on which side of the fence you land on as a Broncos fan in terms of where you think the influence is coming from on the team. There are some that will argue that they are correct in saying, look how much time and resources we put into Garrett Bowles and try to work him out of the penalties and some of those types of things, right, and correct that kind of stuff. And then others will say, well, he just kind of developed, and left tackle is one of the hardest positions to fully transition away from college from. So the question now becomes, A, what side of that fence do you land on? If you land on the first side where we poured resources into him in terms of Munchak and Chris Cooper, into coaching, then there's nothing to prevent us from doing the exact same thing with Lloyd Cushenberry, Quinn Miners, or even Muti, who I'd like to get to, and I think we've had some comments on him as well, to try and prop up.
I think it comes down to draft capital.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
His position. I mean,
right.
Look, as much as I love Cush, and I love what he did, I loved what he did in college at LSU. I mean, he was granted, what was it, number 18, I believe, which is prolific in LSU. You don't get that number unless you are, a leader of men. And he was gifted, he was granted, or not gifted or granted, he was, bequeathed that number. And, and he lived up to it at LSU. And I was excited seeing him coming in. Okay. But, he was third round, right? Cush.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same as Miners.
Yeah. So there you go. You look at Garrett Bowles, the resources and time put into developing and taking care of him, numero uno. He was he was a first round draft pick. We gave up a lot to, that was one, we were betting the future of the franchise on that pick. And they put, the only reason that they put as much time, in my opinion, the only reason they put as much time and effort into developing and making sure he wasn't a bust was because of how high I did. Right. Otherwise, if he had been a third round left tackle, sayonara. Like they just said goodbye a long time ago.
That very much goes into exactly what I was saying earlier, right? Which is we put those resources, and I tend to agree with you, by the way, Johnny, in terms of we put those resources into him likely due to draft capital spent to bring him in, right? However, that also means that we have those resources now that we can, pivot, refocus, if you will, elsewhere on that line. So whether or not we want to focus on the offensive center more heavily, or if we want to maybe spread that across the remaining linemen, Reisner, Cush, and maybe Muti, who are certainly guys that you could see our team wanting to elevate a little bit. I think that would be better for us. As you said, having this depth on the offensive line is a relatively new issue for us as a team. We have had very, very thin offensive line talent, generally speaking. And we also have to remember, in all of that as well, we have Anderson over there, who just before you came in here, stepped in for when Garrett Bowles got injured last season for that one game. I'm not gonna lie, I was super, super impressed with his level of play on the left-hand side.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's ready to start. No matter what anybody says, I don't think he's there yet. Soon, especially with the time he spends with his big brother Garrett Bowles. I mean, the two of them spend so much freaking time together. They're like, from what I've heard, from what I've read, they're inseparable.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he'll develop. He will. I just don't think he's developed yet quite enough yet to be a starter.
Sure.
Right. 100%. Well, you know what? We spent a lot of time on this, but I think we actually got to a lot of good opinions. So let's
we have spent a lot of time on the O-line,
which is great. I love it.
Well, if we're going to look at where our team was last year, offensively, that was where some of our biggest pitfalls came from.
Absolutely.
So, I think if as Broncos fans, we want our team to succeed, and frankly, that's why we're all fans, is that we want our team to succeed. it, as we said at the very beginning of the segment of the offensive line, it starts and ends with them because they're the ones that help keep the quarterback upright and drive the running game, right? So
it's our shield wall. That's the newest thing.
Yeah,
Hashtag shield wall.
Shield wall.
Well,
Get it going,
I guarantee you, if you tweeted that out at a couple of the linemen, we'll see T-shirts at training camp.
I'm gonna make it happen.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna DM Quinn Miners and tell him I want him to make a shirt that says Molon Labe right across the front. Come, or the equivalent of come and get him.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was gonna say we should transition to wide receivers and tight ends since we're getting a little bit short on time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So wide receivers, losing Courtland Sutton still hurts, even to just watching that video of him going down. And I'm pretty sure that Steelers game was very hurtful because not only did we lose our quarterback, but we also lost our wide receiver. And, you got to give credit to Jeff Driscoll. He didn't have a really good game after that Steelers game. And had we had Courtland Sutton for the rest of that game, the Broncos maybe possibly pull out a W instead of, going out trailing. But, that's it's history. It's happened in the past. But losing Courtland Sutton was a prime example of just how important it is to have your number one out there. And losing him is also an example of how your offense can suffer when your number one isn't out there. Now, I got to give a lot of credit to Tim Patrick because he did an amazing job filling in. So, my hat's off to him. He's going to be owed some big bucks in the future. Hopefully it's with Denver.
Your hat is still on there, Don.
Yeah. Forgot. So we are so stacked at wide receiver. I mean, it's ridiculous. But, I'm going to knock on wood because I don't want that injury bug to come back. And as stacked as we are, my probably only concern going forward is KJ Hamler. That hamstring has been pretty bothersome. And it's been a nagging injury. Thank you. And I just need to see or want to see what steps the coaching, if not himself, have taken to try to, not put more pressure on him and not re-aggravate that same injury.
Absolutely.
All
right. Oh, yeah. He re-injured his Hamler string.
Yeah, his Hamler string.
So, all right. So let's talk expectations in this. Okay. Do you expect Court to come back at true to form to what he was before the injury? And two, do you which of the wide receivers do you expect in training camp will shine as the number one receiver?
If it's Drew Lock, I think that him and Courtland Sutton can kind of pick up where they left off at the end of 2019.
Okay.
That's my expectation because those guys were pretty much MIA the first 3 weeks last year. And it's pretty ironic that both of those guys got hurt in the exact same game within 20 to 30 minutes of each other. So, if that's not sweet irony, I
heartbreak,
don't know what is.
Heartbreak can really do bad things to you.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what do you think, Rich?
Quick answer is no. I mean, just no. He's coming off of a fairly major injury, which impacts comfort level, twitch, and he's still got to get back into a full speed game with regards to his repaired ACL. We saw what Chubb did last season coming off of his ACL. It took him between 3 and 4 games to come back to a point where you started to see him return back to what you would deem standard or normal form. I think that is a fair expectation for us as Broncos fans to have for Courtland Sutton. If he comes back better than that sooner, you are not going to hear me complain ever. However, it is an unrealistic expectation for us as Broncos fans to expect Sutton to all of a sudden have the speed, the route running, the cutting, and all that kind of stuff, having now just gotten back into game speed and all that sort of stuff. And in terms of training camp and receivers that I think are going to, we'll just say pop, like ones that you're going to say, oh, okay, that's interesting. I think the one for me is going to be Tyree Cleveland. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. And sorry, I'm trying to go with the less obvious options. Like I think a lot of people are expecting Jerry Jeudy to kind of have that major leap. I'm wanting to go a little bit deeper in the depth chart and say, who do I think is going to be the one that's going to surprise people? I think it's Tyree Cleveland. I think we saw some special things in the back end of last season from Cleveland, and I think we're going to continue to see that develop and that kind of continued development from him into this season, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
Okay. I mean, that's yeah.
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead, Johnny.
No, go.
Well, I was just gonna add to that I too am expecting big things from Jerry Jeudy because, I give him all the credit. His route running skills are amazing. I mean, compared to the two other guys that went before him, and CeeDee Lamb and I can't think of the other guy's name from the Raiders. It was just amazing. The only thing that really killed it for him in terms of it being where you could say like he had a decent or an okay rookie season was those drops in that Chargers game. I mean, he had 3 possible touchdowns, maybe 2, and he just dropped them. So, catching the ball it's got to be a number one thing for him to, correct and fix going into training camp. Also, the whole going on social media and clowning or, kind of acting his age. Where,
shake it for me.
Oh my goodness. That was not supposed to be a thing. That was not supposed to happen. And I'm so sorry that it did.
Special soundboard.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. But
oh my goodness. Thank you for waking me up though.
We're gonna go ahead and
I was unaware that you were such a big Kevin Bacon fan.
Hey, Footloose. I may not be like, Footloose is the greatest movie ever made because it's not. But Footloose is a classic. All right, it is okay.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, I guess.
Let me just say for the record, we do not own the rights to the music you guys just heard. So,
no, we don't. and the music was unintentionally played. Okay.
Yeah. We're sorry, Mr. Travolta.
Oh, that was.
Hey, today's been a day, Johnny. We'll just leave it at that.
So, anyway, wide receivers. What about is anybody else really excited about what they've seen from Kendall Hinton?
He's still fighting for a roster spot.
I know. I mean, honestly, I still think he only makes the practice squad. But I truly believe, and that's just because of the ridiculous depth we have at that position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I honestly believe if we did not have some of the depth we've got at that position, Kendall Hinton would be a shoo-in just based on what we've seen to at least make the 53-man and at least maybe like play some special teams.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I mean, I think he makes the practice.
I have a quick comment on that. I think Hinton's making of the roster depends on if Boone becomes the return man or not. Because I think that basically would push perhaps a guy like Spencer, because he's not done a whole ton and not really looked spectacular on the offensive system here. And I think Hinton, it was a quarterback in college, transitioned to wide receiver, went undrafted.
He's a better wide receiver than he is a quarterback.
But he's a better wide receiver than he is a quarterback. And you know who else was a better wide receiver than a quarterback? Julian Edelman of the New England Patriots. And he made that trans. I know that's a blasphemous thing to say on a Broncos podcast, but forgive me just for a moment. Is when you have a wide receiver who has the quarterback mindset and can read things like a quarterback can, but then also run routes and catch balls like a wide receiver can, it really does put you in a pretty solid position as a team and can give you a bit of a leg up because he can see things and do things that are perhaps more in line with what the quarterback would expect just because they're on a similar wavelength.
What?
Amen. So no, I mean, I think Kendall Hinton makes the practice roster or the practice squad for this season.
Yeah. If Kendall Hinton gets picked up by another team, it'll be because of the fame he earned in Denver.
I mean, you know, the guy will forever have a place in Broncos history, whether it's, you know, if it's for a single thing, but that single thing is something no other player in NFL history has done what he did that day.
I was going to say that's not Broncos.
That's not Broncos. That's an NFL thing.
He's going to be in that quiz game for the NFL where it's like,
yeah, who was the player? And now for the $1 million, which wide receiver stepped in during the Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos New Orleans Saints game in 2020 as the quarterback due to the NFL being a bunch of buttheads.
And let's hope they get it right.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't say Kendall Hinton, they're going home with nothing. Should have hoped for no whammy.
Oh snap!
No whammy.
Hey, this is actually a really interesting one, and I was hoping that someone might bring it up. So thank you, Travis. Seth Williams is a super interesting wide receiver as well.
He is.
I think this is going to be a really, really, really interesting. I don't think training camp is going to be where someone like Seth shines. I think it'll be preseason where he starts going against actual competition, because then you end up with the size mismatches, which I think are going to be more interesting for us as fans and coaches to kind of see what happens. But what do you guys think?
I think Pat Shermer's got so many toys to play with, he doesn't know which one to start with.
He didn't know what to do last season with the toys he had either. So what does that say?
Hey, year one, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for year one. But going into, well, it's not technically year one. It is his second year, right? Yeah, it's his second year. So going into year two, he should be able to know what schemes he can run with his tight ends and whatnot.
But here's the problem: is that his entire offensive scheme is almost 2 decades in the past.
Yeah, well,
the dude.
Football.
Yeah,
we gotta have some faith in there, Johnny. I know.
I'm trying.
I hear what you're
I'm
saying.
trying so hard, buddy. But I swear to God, until someone can walk up to that guy and say, "Hey, what's a jet sweep?" and have him give the correct answer and execute a good jet sweep at the right time. I mean,
sorry, I have one more thing to add. When we as fans saw a screen pass thrown once last season and Twitter literally blew up and that started trending from Broncos fans, that's a problem.
It is. It's a major problem. And I don't understand why, because the screen pass is not a new concept.
No, I know.
Okay,
no,
I mean,
but that most
maybe within the last 30 years.
I mean, for crying out loud, Gale Sayers had one of the most incredible, the most incredible career game in the history for a single player in the history of the NFL was by Gale Sayers, and I mean, three of the I think what was it 7 or 8 touchdowns he scored in a single game or whatever were screen passes, and that was a long time ago. I don't remember the date, but I should look it up. I'm just saying the screen pass is not a new concept.
So where do you think Seth lands? How do you think training camp plays out for a guy like Seth?
It's to be seen. Again, the wide receiver position is so ridiculous stacked.
Yeah,
it's too much. Like, I mean, really,
it's practice squad.
I mean, you look at now. Like the guys. You look at the guys that everybody talks about, right? That's already 4 or 5 that we're retaining, and we're going to need to retain at least 2 more. That's like we're going to have 7 or 8 on the roster, and that's insane. That's what it's going to be. And I mean, and you already look at the ones that everybody's like, you're gonna have them on the field. They literally make up 5 of those 8. So that leaves maybe three guys: Tyree Cleveland, Deontay Spencer, that can attain those 3 slots. And
right, no, I totally get what
I would love to see it. Maybe he makes the team for special teams. But right now, with the as much as I like the pick that we made on Seth Williams, as much as I like that he's in Denver and we're rocking the orange and blue right now, I don't foresee him usurping some of the talent that's already at that position right now. You know, maybe a season or two down the road as these guys filter on through with free agency, they move on to greener pastures or possibly greener pastures. We've seen that in the past. Possibly then he can start. You guys like him can start making the team, but I honestly don't think he's making at least not at the position of wide receiver. If he makes the team, it's on special teams.
And the other thing that was brought up, Don mentioned earlier, and we're getting super tight on time, so I just want to make sure that we cover this off. It was brought up about KJ Hamler and his hamstring injury and the fact that he has spent at least a fair amount of time, even last season, where he hasn't been able to play or hasn't played well and that kind of stuff just as a result of his injury. Mm-hmm. Do we think that may play a major role this season if we choose to, if we have this additional depth at wide receiver, do we think that might impact his status on our team in training camp and whatnot if he gets hurt again?
Probably. I mean,
like I said, I guess on the flip side of that is, do you think that we then just push him to IR since we have a fair number of wide receivers that we seem to be fairly confident in?
That'd be pretty drastic.
If it's something more than a strain, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, right now at this point, it's just a hamstring strain. It's over and over and over again, but thus far it has just been a strain.
Mm-hmm.
Pray to the football gods, pray to, Jesus, Allah, whoever you might pray to, that it doesn't get worse for him. Because soft tissue injuries, especially lower body soft tissue injuries, they don't just go away. I mean, they might not go away ever.
Right.
I mean, those kind of injuries don't just heal, and they're so easy to re-aggravate. He could literally be walking down the stairs in his house and step wrong off the bottom step, and suddenly, oh gosh, and it looks like a scene from Mr. Wilson and Dennis the Menace. Oh my back, it just out of nowhere, just suddenly he's, oh God, my leg, oh, and all he did was take a step off the staircase. I mean, I'm glad you guys got a kick out of that one. But it is what can happen, and I foresee him making special teams if he makes any position at all right now.
Right.
Otherwise, practice squad, and ready to slot in.
Right. Yeah, that'd be my guess.
Oh, jeez, Mundungus.
Oh no!
Too hard of a fart, and you throw your back out.
Hey, the boss ain't lying, man. I'm telling you, I'm getting up there in age where if
is that one of those hashtag old man problems?
Hey, listen. I'm an Army vet, okay? Like I'm 32 years old, but with all the deployments I've been on, the injuries I've sustained, everything else, I think the algorithm said that my body is like 70. Oh God, yeah, 32. Wake up out of bed and stand up and go, it's terrible.
So we're nearing the end here, guys. Some positions we haven't really covered off, and I wanted to make sure we were able to at least get something in if we wanted to. Was cornerbacks, inside linebackers are two positions that I think are going to definitely and 100% be training camp battles. Wanted to know your thoughts, your feedback, anything else that you guys might have to say on those two positions, which I think are going to be really fascinating.
Man, I wish we had the time, but all I can say is that I'm super excited. What I see on paper and watch it come to fruition in just under 2 months or whatever. I can't wait. It's gonna be fan-diddly-tastic.
Expectation for the secondary. This secondary, everybody's already pretty much expecting it. Okay, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This secondary, I already said that. Hamler string. This secondary in training camp before we even hit the preseason is going to blow up. Like we're gonna be watching training camp practices, and we're gonna see. And here's the one caveat I'm gonna make. Everybody's gonna blow it up on Drew Lock whenever he throws a pick. But I'm gonna go ahead and just offer forward the fact that he's going to be going against who I believe is about to blow up to be the number one secondary in the NFL. And these guys are getting their practice in too, people, and they're getting those picks because that's how they practice to get them picks in the regular season. So it's going to happen a lot. I foresee the secondary exploding and showing us some exciting stuff. I mean, I'm excited about PS2. I'm excited about Kyle Fuller, rocking in orange and blue. It's going to be exciting. So that's what I foresee for the secondary. They blow up in training camp and show the whole NFL preseason. We are here and we are about to take this place by storm.
I agree. I think we have better depth this year. I think we have better fits for Fangio's scheme that we acquired in the offseason. I mean, we already know what Fuller can do in a Fangio scheme. He looked, excellent in Chicago under Fangio. Right. And so I think we're in a good position when it comes to our secondary. The one concern that I have is just I don't want to see a repeat of what happened to us last year at that particular position group. That is a concern of mine. Because it did seem to be that all of the defensive backs seemed to go down with a similar injury. So I really do hope that we have kind of moved past that as a team. Yeah. And but I think we have much, much, much better depth. So we're not going out and finding the guy in the stands to fill in for the next game.
Agreed. I mean, honestly, a lot of it I think was a fluke. It just was. I said this a few months back. Last season was Murphy's Law meets a perfect storm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like what can go wrong will go wrong. And it went wrong as bad as it can go.
Right.
Like it was like the two worst things, the perfect storm meets Murphy's Law. Can go wrong, will go wrong. And the worst possible outcome was what happened.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't think it's going to look like that again this season. I mean, the odds of that are low because the odds of it happening the way it did last season were low.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but unfortunately, guys, we are out of time. So we're going to have to end today's segment. Guys, that's going to have to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for everybody that joined us in the chat today. I do apologize. I'm not able to usually thank everybody individually like I normally do because I can't see the chat. The boss with a closing statement, he says, I will say this, while obviously they will be going against the best secondary in the NFL, the best quarterbacks in the league find a way to not throw picks. We will have to see if Locke can learn. And that's very well said.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, definitely not wrong. Guys, want to thank all of you guys, like I said, for joining us tonight. And we want to thank every single person, whether you're listening to or watching us live or you're listening to us after the fact on repeat or on audio. Again, guys, we are on a quest for 1,000 subs.
Wait. Ready. The quest. For 1,000.
Thank you so much. It feels longer than normal. I got to get used to that.
It's a new thing. It's a new sound. Unfortunately, my old one disappeared.
Yeah. So, guys, we are on a quest for 1,000 subs. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like on Facebook or on Twitter, and retweet the show's hashtags, everything. Guys, we need your support for 1,000 subs. As we stated at the beginning of the show, when we hit 1,000 subs, I should say, Glenn Hauser will be rocking the Barrel Man Barrel on the following show on Mile High Roundtable. And speaking of which, guys, make sure you catch Mile High Roundtable this Thursday at 7654 on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You know where to put them. It's going to be an action-packed show, I guarantee you. Stay tuned on Twitter so you guys figure out or know what the topic for that show is. And then,
I believe this week it's Zach Seegers.
I think so.
Zach Seegers
on the show.
Yeah, so it's Zach Seeger. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's Zach Seeger that's going to be on the show. And then on Sunday, we have the Nothing Rhymes With podcast, which our good friend, man up top, Broncos Viking, and of course his co-host, my good friend, Isaiah Pookie Knights. And they're going
to he's never going to get away from that.
And he's not. And they're going to have all the up-to-date Broncos news and stories for you that we have missed during the week. So, guys, with that being said, make sure you hit us up on Facebook, YouTube at Richie individually, Broncos Viking, myself at a 6'10" Mexican, and MHRT Podcast on YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter. Guys, for Richie and Johnny and myself, have a good night, guys. We'll see you all next week.